and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome back to the Exceptional Conservative Show live from the nation's capital, Washington, D.C. This program on Open Heart Closed Case Night in remembrance of my daughter Shanice Milton, who was killed in Washington, D.C. Is focused on public safety. Our issues are normally child abuse, missing persons, teen suicides, and as well unresolved homicides. But we deal with the general topic matter of public safety. And one of the issues that deals directly with the whole concept of policing is investigative work. Work in which police not only take reports, but actually have to investigate to bring about arrest and proper direction of the case to the district attorney. And I want you to understand that in our age now, where they are greeted daily with verbal and physical abuse from patrons and residents and citizens of the cities, urban America, many of them have a different outlook on policing right now. Part of that is how the response of the police unions has impacted them over the years. And so I want to talk with Lina Maini tonight, who has a finger on the pulse of what's happening with police around the country. She is the co-founder of Veterans and Police Assistance Agency, and has a reach from New York to California. She understands exactly what's going on with our veterans, as well as our military veterans who are police, and as well the police officers themselves. We want to talk about the impact of police unions with Lina tonight. Good, Lina, it's a tremendous honor having you here. You are like a computer brain power right here, and we really appreciate you. Because you're giving us insights on things that most people have no contemplation on whatsoever. Most importantly, the psyche of today's police officer. And so I want to start right there. First and foremost, what does it take to be a police officer? And then secondly, how do they feel right now, having made all those sacrifices and are being repudiated by those people that they are caused to protect?
Okay, Ken, and thank you for that introduction again. I appreciate it on behalf of police and our veterans. The mood in the country right now is disturbing in that it's dangerous. Mm-hmm. It's dangerous physically, the physical welfare of our citizens, period, in that police are not being allowed to do their jobs, which is to maintain order for people's own safety, and not because they have any other interest, obviously not. But to your question, what it takes to be a police officer, I sincerely believe that police are born that way, mm-hmm. To serve. If we think about it for a second here, you have an individual who goes out every day, day in, day out, and faces dangers that we can't even imagine. And they do it completely for strangers. Who does that other than someone who's born to serve and wants to do that, to serve and protect? It's not one of those occupations you really go to school for.
Yeah, exactly.
So that's what it takes. It takes the heart and the courage.
I have to ask you this, and you know that I'm a straight shooter on these questions.
Oh, yes.
There are those who project to urban American citizens, especially in low-income areas, amongst certain races of individuals, that the police have some type of board up in the precinct in which they are going to target black people or target Hispanics, and they can't go a day without making certain that their star is up on the board in terms of the number of people that they've harassed and harangued. Is the objective of police, mind you, I don't know about them individually, but collectively, is the object of the police to harass and harangue races of individuals and to cause punitive damages in their life?
That's a really old meme that's been around and trotted out, for political purposes quite often. But honestly, hey, let's look at the NYPD, with which I'm extremely familiar. 52% of the NYPD is comprised of minorities. So where are they going with that argument?
Just can't. Can you repeat that? Because there's some people sitting at home with their mouth dropped at this point.
52% of the NYPD is comprised of minorities. So where are they going with the argument that the police, by and large, are collectively racist? That doesn't make sense.
It doesn't indeed. And in minority cities, well, they're composed of the individual groups of collective races that are considered minority. More than likely, these are majority minority cities. Am I correct? Like Washington and Baltimore. Am I correct about that?
You're correct, right?
So why would an objective of these guys showing up in the morning, going out to harass and harangue their own families and friends, that doesn't bode like an argument that works, does it?
It just doesn't make sense. And plus, myself on an individual level, over many years, having many police friends and family, these men and women are the most kind-hearted people. Sincerely, I've seen them do things for complete strangers, collecting clothes for a newborn in the family, etc., of complete strangers. And this is routine. And they're not the ones who appear on the media or anywhere. They're not out there publicly saying, "Hey, look at what I did today." They don't do that.
Exactly.
They're quiet. You don't see TikTok of police officers doing what I've seen them do, which is extend extraordinary kindness.
Exactly. Now, your agency works with police on a number of things, and let's just be honest. With all the things that they go through in their given day, and then to have to deal with the onslaught of politicians that are just using people to get a narrative across, they're often lost in the crosshairs. Am I right about that?
Well, the police have always been a political pawn.
Yeah.
In any city, even on a governor's level, with the state troopers, like Governor Cuomo is doing in New York, etc. They've always been used as pawns, which is extremely unfortunate, and they truly resent that. They will do their jobs, keep people safe, but they don't like being played.
Yeah, and so
they don't like going up to average citizens and saying, "Hey, you can't stand there," for no apparent reason other than we were told to tell you you can't stand there.
Exactly. I was watching the films in New York of police officers who were being actually beaten. And I'm talking about not just the blue shirts, because that's expected of blue shirts. They fight the front lines. But they were beating the white shirts. And in fact, a woman with a cane slashes the head of a police chief who actually took that bow for Black Lives Matter. I mean, what is the message that the police are getting right now from the community?
Well, the message that they're getting is, hey, if you don't want us here, we don't want to be here either.
Yeah.
And if they continue with this defunding insanity, they won't be there.
Yeah.
And so let's look at this logically. If people feel welcome almost in this in this stage, this setting we have in the country right now, to beat up police officers on camera.
Yeah.
What do civilians think is going to happen to them in their neighborhoods, wherever they live? It doesn't matter if they don't have respect for the police. How are they going to have respect for anybody else?
Exactly, and I think they have been double-crossed, the blue shirts especially double-crossed at this point. Because, and I just want to say this without saying that this is a thought by VPAA at all. This is my conjecture, my show. It is devastating for a cop to be on the street and know that politicians are urging citizens to attack them. And maybe not necessarily overtly, But if you covertly support Antifa and Black Lives Matter, are you not saying that you want them to beat up on the police? Am I getting that picture clearly?
My personal opinion on that, Ken, is that those politicians should be held criminally responsible.
Thank you.
They are willfully encouraging mayhem. What's happening is insane. Today in Portland, Oregon, I don't know if you've heard this yet, 3 federal officers are now blind for the rest of their lives because rioters pointed lasers at their eyes. They burned their corneas.
Oh my God.
I'm speechless. I am so mortified. I literally almost have no words. You now have 3 federal agents, police officers, law enforcement officers, who are blind permanently.
Now, there is a mayor there who has encouraged that type of abuse for the past 2 months. So, if the people are not upset at this point with their mayor, who's protecting the police at this point? If it's not the politicians and it's not the people, who's protecting the police?
Unfortunately, no one.
Wow.
You don't have, you do not have the mayors, the governors, and in many cases, obviously citizens, whether they're protesters. Well, there's a big difference between protesters and rioters. One is guaranteed in our Constitution. The other one is a crime.
Yes.
A serious crime. We've had police murdered. We've had civilians murdered in these alleged protests. They're not protests. They're riots, bought and paid for.
Exactly.
So, to go to your point, imagine being a police officer these days, and you know that the minute you walk out of the precinct, or even your own front door, because they're doxing police officers online.
Yes, they are.
That you have a target on your back. Which one of us would go and do that job every day, knowing that you have a target on your back?
And if you could explain to people what doxing is, and there are lots of people that got that, understand, but if you could explain to people.
Doxing is basically they find out the police officers, their name, and then they run their address and phone number, their private residence address and phone number, and publicly post it online.
And so anybody that goes to the house of that particular police officer is then a target. That includes children. That includes parents and family and friends. Am I right about that?
No, you're absolutely right. I mean, this is a private residence like anybody else. Cops have families, just like everyone else. So you have children, you have parents, grandparents, pets, etc. And just imagine the type of harassment that they get.
Oh my God!
And there's nothing. I have not heard one mayor or governor address that.
As I listened to you, the first thing I thought when you said, when I asked you who's protecting the police, I just knew you were going to say it's the police unions of America that's protecting the police. Why didn't you say it's the police unions?
The police unions now, they are as vocal as they can be, and they have been,
mm-hmm.
but they're not in a position to protect. Do you see what I'm saying? They can't really be proactive. They can urge the politicians who really do control the actions on the street to try to protect their police officers.
Mm-hmm.
But again, they're a collective body that can't be proactive in the sense of they do not establish policy.
But they sit on both sides of the negotiating table in many cities like Washington and New York, and
actually, they're not.
Okay.
They're not on I don't mean to what you're saying,
yeah.
But here in New York, they should not be on both sides.
Mm-hmm.
That the whole objective to the unions, aside from representing the police and making sure that they're, people forget that police actually have the same constitutional rights we all have. That's a big one there, so the unions are there to protect that. But they're also there. They do collective bargaining, setting a pattern, for that bargaining, which sometimes can hamstring a few things. But that's their function, is to represent them as much as they can in the sense of protecting them when it comes to legal issues and work issues. But they really have no real say in policy. They can try to publicly urge the mayors and governors do the right thing, but that they're fairly limited with that.
And so with the police unions not really being as strong as they originally were during the 1950s and 60s, police unions were very, very strong. They have gotten very weak recently. Is it because many of the police unions try to be the friend to the mayor and to the legislator instead of being the protector for the police? Is it warranted for me to make that accusation?
I don't think it's really so much that, as we see in the papers. Often, the police union chiefs do come up and say quite a few things that are contrary to the governing powers, the mayors and governors. But they're limited again with that. But one of the unfortunate weaknesses of police unions is that in bargaining, they can only present a strategy. It's a one-size-fits-all strategy. Obviously, they can't advocate on behalf of each police officer individually, in collective bargaining. So that allows for the weakest to be rewarded along with the strongest. And sometimes the unions actually get in the way of meaningful change because the top-level union officials may not be on the cutting edge, of modern policing.
And so instead of being able to get rid of bad cops, they have to do a collective. They have to look at the whole and protect the whole. So there's not really a good cop, bad cop thing. It's just strictly a cop that needs representation. Am I correct?
That's true in any sense. And again, I go back to the Constitution in that everyone is entitled to a legal defense.
Yes.
So that's not something that you can't put the cart before the horse here.
Mm-hmm.
What I'm saying is it has to go through the same process as anyone else.
So, let me just ask you here, because we've been told that there's a constitution that we follow for legislative matters, for appropriations, for public policy. You get in line, you aggrieve, you basically convince politicians to put together laws and get them passed through various legislative bodies and then get it signed by the executive and upheld by courts. And yet there's a body of individuals that didn't do that in the early part of this summer. They just acted as a mob, and now they're virtually getting anything that they want. What message does that send to the American people, firstly, and then secondly to the police, who have been charged with the responsibility of protecting the least, the last, and the lost?
Okay. Are we getting close to then discussing defunding the police?
Yes.
Okay. First of all, for any union, police union or organization, that's a non-starter.
Mm-hmm.
You can't do budget cuts. You just can't.
Thank you.
And what happens when these group of people, and we're seeing power grabs left, right, and center.
Yes.
Everyone is claiming COVID, and that's the reason why all of these rules and regulations and everything else they're just power grabs. And the same thing is happening here with the police. How they became the focal point here of all these riots and protests. I understand what happened with George Floyd. I understand that, but this is way beyond a protest.
Mm-hmm.
This is just lawlessness and anarchy. That's all it is, and it's bought and paid for. That's my opinion.
Yeah.
But as far as defunding the police, what's happening is what's happening now. So the police are going to pull back. There's going to be less enforcement. And then you're going to see a serious uptake in retirements. They literally had to cap retirements here with the NYPD because so many police were retiring.
Exactly. And that may be the case in D.C., where at least 200 officers have stated that they will be filing at the end of this year for retirement. And that is the exact opposite number of individuals that will not be put through the cadet program. They've cut the cadet program in the District of Columbia. And so tonight,
the same has happened here with the retirements over 400 in several months. And let's think about this. We're talking retirement. We're not talking people just left the job. So we're now taking senior officers off of the police force. So who's going to train the new ones and the ones that are new on the job?
Oh, my God.
There's going to be a serious deficit in mentoring.
So,
and this is an on-the-job training job, sincerely.
So
whatever they can teach you at the academy, your courses in criminal justice, etc. And I think you and I can agree on this, Ken. Nothing teaches you but the street.
You ain't lying. You ain't lying. It all looks good in books, but in reality is where it really catches the tail of the donkey. I want to ask you here, Lina. We've seen a 20% increase in violent crime in America, the majority of which is homicides, since the mobs have taken over. Police unions have been thwarted and quieted. Blues are beginning to talk about retirement. Whites are quitting. There was a chief of Anne Arundel County Police that said, basically, you can have this job. I've been doing it for 25 years, and you guys have screwed us. I'm out of here. So, and there are thoughts now that there's going to be recruitment of other types of police. And so I want to ask you here, community police, Nation of Islam, Black Lives Matter, Black Panther, Sharia forces, what does that impact upon our communities?
First of all, you cannot have a police force with an agenda.
I'm so sorry.
Seriously. I mean, if I go out there and say, geez, I'm Italian and I'm a woman, so that's my agenda. Everything else I'm going to look at with askance. Really? That makes no sense. They're truly, the police departments have to be that exact melting pot. And they have to be race, gender, religious. They have to be blind to all of that. Mm-hmm. And they are.
Yeah.
So these little, they're not police forces. These are mobs.
Thank you.
They're a group of people who got together with a specific agenda, and in some cases are armed, which is even more dangerous. Mm-hmm. I mean, I'm all for the Second Amendment. Trust me.
Yes.
And I really, believe it's a God-given right to defend yourself. Leave alone that it's in the Constitution, but. The Bill of Rights, but when you have people who declare themselves as having an agenda, and especially those who espouse violence,
yeah,
those are not police. Can you imagine if those words were coming out of police, the mouths of police officers? I don't think the CCRB, the Civilian Complaint Review Board here, has enough people to qualify all of the complaints that would be filing in.
Lina, I love when you come on because you're so just honest about the situations at hand. We looked at a 20% increase. For those who are defunding police, like in Newark, New Jersey, where they completely dismantled the police, what does crime look like 3 to 4 years from now in America?
It sincerely depends on what happens in the next several months, Ken.
Yeah.
When you have riots that are out of control, people are getting hurt, injured, killed, police officers being blinded for life. Okay, that's time. That's enough. If you as a mayor cannot control your city, then the federal government must come in. Mm-hmm. Period. I think that these riots are at the point where now, and have been for several months, where they're extremely dangerous. You have, not only do we have the actual assaults and worse happening at and with the riots, but we also have, as you said, a huge uptick in crime. Police are not being directed to respond to certain crimes. In LA, they have now, I guess, what they call social workers responding to domestic violence situations. That's always a good thing.
Oh, that's great.
Obviously, that's sarcasm. What I'm saying is that the two events that most often, endanger police officers' lives are domestic violence situations and car stops. So, to begin with, you're dealing with dangerous people. You don't know what's going on, so they're sending in people who are wholly untrained in potential understanding the escalation to physical violence, how to offset it. Sometimes you cannot talk people down. Often you can't.
Yeah.
Especially in a very emotional, volatile situation.
Yeah.
So, what does crime look like? Quite honestly, it depends on who wins this election.
Yeah. Thank you.
This presidential election. If it's, I'm just telling people, vote for Donald Trump.
There you go. Law and order.
There's no other way of really looking at this, because we're seeing what's happening. Again, not to get into a political discussion, but looking at this logically and realistically, these cities that are run in a liberal sense, look what's happened to them all.
Yeah, exactly. And when you
can't have, we can't have 67 people getting shot in a weekend. That's just that on no level is that acceptable.
Exactly.
One isn't acceptable. Leave alone the rest.
And I just want to say this, because people get offended when I say this, but I it's my show. I can say whatever the hell I want.
You got that.
The bottom line is, if these were white Democrat mayors in these urban centers, and 50 to 60 people were getting shot in the weekend, and 8 and 3-year-olds were being killed in the cars, there would be protests all over the place. Why is it allowable for you to be in a black city with a black mayor, and it's okay for black on black crime? I don't think it's just. I don't think it's right. And an election will make a big difference. Lina, in finality, if you could sit down with the New York Police Union and say that this is the one thing that you need to do in the next 6 months with de Blasio as mayor, what would be that one thing?
Well, I mean, if we're talking about sitting down like with the PBA, the Petroleum Benevolent Association,
yes,
the head is Pat Lynch. The only thing I can say to him, or I would say to him, is let your police officers police.
There you go.
Let them be brave. Let them do what they know how to do and what to do. And if there are complaints, back them up 200%.
There you go. Very simple. And I'm going to tell you that the poorest people in the city need that more than anybody else. They need police. They need the gangs taken care of. MS-13 taken out. The Caribbean gangs. They need safety. Trust me.
That's the one thing that people aren't looking at. They're looking at the riots and people are getting hurt and injured and unfortunately killed. But let's look at the rest of the crime that is on a wild uptick. We have people in domestic violence situations getting beaten, raped, kids. It's just crazy that this is happening, and it's out of control because the criminals know that there's nothing's going to happen.
Well, there's one party.
I mean, if we're releasing criminals from prison, we're certainly not taking them in.
Well, and it's very simple. You got one party that supports the criminal, and then you got one party that supports the citizen. You tell me which party you're going to go with, and you'll have the victory in that party. Lina, how can police veterans get your support? How can they get in contact with you and especially prayers and encouragement from all of us. Let them know that when they talk with you, that the real Americans love them and support them and care for them and encourage them to keep doing what they're supposed to do.
Absolutely. We back the blue. And it's the Veterans and Police Assistance Agency, the VPAA, and they can go to our website, myvpaa.org, or call 888-863-0090. Again, that's 888-863-0090. Ask for me, Lina Maini, and I'll speak with anyone who calls us, and if we can help them, we will. We absolutely will. As I said, we're the bridge to corporate and civilian resources, because a lot of times they just don't exist.
Yes. Now,
it's not, the VA helps out with medical issues, etc. But what about finding and helping affordable housing, safe housing, loans that they need, especially now with everything being so transient.
Exactly. I just want to give the encouragement. There's one person in the chat roll who says those people who gave out city official addresses, meaning police officers' personal addresses, need to be charged with federal crimes. So there, that is
I'm hoping that quite honestly, the feds kick in and I don't know, wire communication. There has to be something on a federal level that can address that. I don't know. Maybe the FBI's IC3 unit, which is their computer crime.
It just might be time for President Trump to pick up the phone and tell the National Guard to get ready to go to Portland. If you're going to blind 3 of our men, we're coming to tear this city down. That's just my opinion. My opinion. That's it.
Well, I think we're going to go in there and try to rebuild it. They've already torn it down themselves. But all joking, a bit of levity there over a horrific situation. It's time. It's way past time. If these mayors cannot control their cities, they're killing people.
Yeah.
It is willful. As far as I'm concerned, it is negligent homicide.
Thank you. You are the first person I ran to that agrees with me. That, they talk about forgive me, I know I'm going overboard here. Forgive me here. But they talk about taking away the protections that police have in order to sue them in civil court for protocol issues. Why not take away the politicians' protections when they endorse violent behavior by rioters who call themselves protesters? Shouldn't that be right?
They actually do have that responsibility. And I believe, there's a thing called malfeasance as well. So they do have, that's their job. Their job is to not just represent, but also protect the citizens. If they can't do it, or if they won't do it, they need to be removed immediately. It's an obvious danger.
There you go. Lina Maini, we love you. We thank God for you and what you do for veterans and police around the country. Can you tell everybody just once more how to get in contact with you?
Sure. And thank you very much, Ken. You're very, very gracious and very generous. Thank you. It's the Veterans and Police Assistance Agency, myvpaa.org, and they can call us at 888-863-0090. And we're available 24/7.
Lina Maini with us tonight, ladies and gentlemen. VPAA. You can find her on Twitter at my_VPAA. But better yet, you can find her directly on the World Wide Web. Just go to VPAA and you will find her and her wonderful organization. And by the way, Donald Trump, because I know you're watching tonight, Lina said take the troops and go to Portland. That's what she said.
Absolutely, Mr. President.
There you go. God bless you. Have a very, very good evening, Lina.
God bless you, Ken, and God bless the USA.
Amen. There you go. Ladies and gentlemen, I am telling you without a shadow of a doubt, America needs an enema. It needs to get rid of the Democrat Marxists that have taken over urban America, and do not mind the sacrificial lambs, meaning you, for power's sake. Ladies and gentlemen, this is Open Heart Closed Case Night. I know that we ran over in this particular block, and I'm going to have to go to our station break. I want to thank y'all so much for being here tonight. Listen, there are two questions that you need to ask yourself tonight. The first question is, do you know where your children are? Here's the second and most important question. Do your children know where you are?
It's 10 p.m. Do you know where your children are?